Hello and welcome back to My Own Worst Enemy. Time to start turn number 4, the Battle of Eutaw Springs. This is from the Great Battles of the American Revolution from GMT Games. We are going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the sequence of play again. We're going to go ahead and jump into turn number 4. Let's go ahead and take a close look at the turn track here. All right, we're coming into turn number 4. We don't know who's going to have the initiative yet. We will have American reinforcements coming in. And it looks like we're going to have a light infantry unit and Washington's dragoons will be coming in. But first we need to determine who in fact will have the initiative. So let's do that. And I will just leave the camera here and we'll go ahead and just roll it. See if I can get this on screen. I can. So this is basically, well not basically, this is just a die roll. We're going to roll 2d6, blue for the Americans, red for the British. And we will take into account the Army's morale. So looking at the Army's morale, they're both high. And so that means they're both going to get a +1 to the roll. And the only other thing that could influence this roll is this momentum chip from the Americans. However, they're not going to use that. We're just going to have a roll and see who's going to win the initiative here. So we're looking for a higher number. Each side gets a +1. And it looks like the Americans rolled a 1. The British rolled a 6, so it's going to be 7 and 2. The British will get to go first here. So let's get this out of the way. And we will flip the turn marker over to the British side. And we will show that the British will have the initiative here. They will get to go first. And those American units will deploy when it's their turn. So now let's go ahead. We will zoom back out. And we will take a look at what the British want to do here. So we go back, we're looking at the expanded sequence of play again. British have the initiative, and we go right into the movement phase. There's no reinforcements for the British to place. Disrupted units may move 1 hex. There's no disrupted units, there's no shattered units, there are no pinned units. And now units may conduct movement. So let's see what the British want to do here. This actually worked out in their favor. They've got the Americans coming down the road, they're aware of it, they've rushed out here to defend these starred hexes. The Americans, of course, want to go through those or hold those, take those, because that will get them closer to victory if they can do that. And remember that if the Americans can actually get in here and take this blue star hex without an enemy zone control over it, they will immediately win the game, although I don't think that's too likely to happen. So that said, where do the British want to move? Do they want to move? Honestly, I don't really think that. I'm not really sure I want to move any of these units. They kind of want the Americans just to come in. There's some advantages to, well, there really isn't that many advantages. I mean, close combat in this game, these light forest hexes aren't going to come into play here. There's no effect for light combat. There is for rifle fire, but the rifled units are up here. And actually, this is one area where they are definitely going to want to move their units. But these other units, I don't really know if they want, they probably want to move this 2nd Royal Highland unit, maybe bring that forward to help kind of prepare for what's coming. But there's really no advantage for these units to be in the woods. It's just, there's no effect. It's almost like being in open terrain for close combat purposes. So I'm going to say they are going to move. This unit is going to come forward. And I've got to watch out for stacking limitations here. We can have 6 points. There's already 6 in this stack. And in this stack, there's only 4, so you could go there. Movement factor of 4, 1, 2. Could also come down here to this side. Up here with marchbanks. You could come up there with marchbanks. And here we have artillery. That wouldn't count towards the stacking limit, but we do have 4 strength points worth of units in there, so you could go even up to that forward line where that artillery is located. So I think what we're going to do is bring this unit forward 1, 2. We'll bring him up closer to marchbanks. And now this unit, I'm just going to leave it there. Again, this is Coffin. It is a leader, so he will get to apply his adjacency tactics to those units that are around him. So I think I'm going to leave the British setup like this. I am going to move the rifled unit up here and this dragoon unit. So let's move the dragoon first. And of course, it can move 6. And we may just move them straight in here to Swamp Fox and those South Carolina militia. and maybe just hit them. Why don't we just do that? So we'll take the Dragoons, they'll go 1, 2, and then we will have the rifled unit do the same thing, 1, 2. So they're going to move up. They're going to try to head off the Swamp Fox. And these units are just going to form up here and let the Americans come on and try to take them down. So that's going to be it for the movement phase for the British. Now we're going to go into the rally phase. There's no one to rally here, so we're going to go next into the defensive artillery fire phase. And it being the defensive artillery fire phase, that's the Americans. They only have 2 artillery units. They're still too far away. We've got 1 in the stack here and 1 in the stack with green. And they're still moving up. So there will be no defensive artillery fire. And now we go into rifle fire. Well, we do have rifle fire to resolve, and that will be up here with the Swamp Fox. So let's go ahead and zoom back into that area of the map. All right, rifle fire. We do have 2 rifled units. Rifle fire is simultaneous. So let's go ahead and take a look at the rifled units. There is the British rifled unit. And let me move Swamp Fox out of the way here. And of course, each of these will get that first fire DRM added to their rolls. So, 2 things. Let me grab the player's aid. It has the ranged fire table on it. And the results of ranged fire, you can see those there. I will bring the dice tower in so we can see the roll. Let's see if I can get that onto the screen. Looks like we can kind of get it on there. Close enough. Get our red and blue D10s. So we're going to look at those tables I just showed you, range fire to hit. We will start with I don't guess it matters here. Let me take a look at the sequence of play because this is simultaneous. So let's just start with the British since they're the phasing player and look at the 2-hit table. So they're firing on this rifled unit. And then we're going to look at the modifiers here. So the range, of course, it's adjacent. So there's strength point of 1 firing adjacent, and they're going to need a 7 to hit. So the British are looking for a 7 to hit, and let's look at the modifier. So if the target is a light infantry, they'll get a -1. It's not light infantry. Target is in a forest. It is not. It is not mounted dragoon. It is not artillery. We will get the +1 though, because this unit is firing for the first time. So +1 for first fire. It's not in the meeting house, Guilford, no, none of that. It's not in the plantation house. +1, Santee River. Not in the Santee River, so we don't have to worry about that. So strictly a 7. So they're looking for a die roll of 7 to hit. All right, so let's roll the British D10, looking for a 7 or greater to hit. And that is an 8. That is going to be a hit for the British. Bad news for the South Carolina militia. So we have our hit, and now we have to look at that rifle artillery fire damage table. And that's going to tell us what damage is going to be done. So we're looking at that first half of the chart, rifle fire versus non-artillery. And again, it's an unmodified roll on this D10. So let's see what we get. It's a 4, and a 4 on this chart is an R result. So that's a retreat. So a retreat, the Americans have to retreat either due west or in the northwest or southwest direction. So this rifle unit will have, let's see. I'm looking again real quick here because we rolled, when we rolled this, we rolled an 8, and I was just looking back up. So I was just double checking that I did include the die roll modifier. But anyway, this unit will now have to retreat. And I'm going to say that Swamp Fox is with this unit, but it's going to retreat. We'll get Swamp Fox out of the way. This unit's going to retreat back to Nelson's Ferry, which would be logical in my opinion. Now, that was the British fire. Now we've got to resolve this rifled unit fire. And I mean, it's going to end up retreating, but remember, this is simultaneous fire. So we still have to resolve the fire for that unit. So let's get this first fire die roll modifier marker off there. And we will now conduct fire for the Americans. So again, they were adjacent and they are looking for, strength points are a 1. So it's the same thing. They're looking for a 7 to hit. And let's check the modifiers. That is a light unit. So wait a second here. They are going to get a modifier. They're looking for a 7. The target is light infantry. So that's a -1. They will get a +1 for the first fire, so that's really going to just wash it out. Because these other factors on the to hit table for ranged fire, no other factors apply here. So it's going to be a straight roll, and they're looking for a 7 or greater to hit. So they're going to roll. If they get a 9, they managed to hit too. That is good luck there for the Americans. So we're going to remove the first fire marker for the Americans. And now we have to see what the results are for the damage inflicted by that rifled unit. So we're going to roll this again. We roll a 6, and on the damage chart versus non-artillery, that is also a retreat result. So both sides fired and retreated. All right, so let's get this out of the way. So this unit also has to retreat. This unit, so Swamp Fox was still sitting here. The rifled unit retreated back to here, and this rifled unit is now going to have to retreat, and he's just going to retreat along the road this direction. And I'm just going to have a quick look to see if there is any other adjustments we need to make for retreating units. Now remember, this is rifled fire, so I'm pretty sure there's no morale checks for the units that were stacked with them. Looking at retreat under combat rules, the owning player retreats the affected unit 1 hex. And again, this is rifled fire, so you only had 1 unit on each side involved. The other friendly units in the close combat and the defender's artillery, but not the attacker's artillery, must make a morale check. So this being rifled fire tells me that they do not have to make a morale check. I believe that is correct. So I'm going to say that Swamp Fox and the Charleston Dragoons do not need to make a morale check here. And so that is going to take us out of the rifled fire phase and into the close combat phase. So we might as well keep the camera here because let's see, do the Dragoons want to have a go at Swamp Fox? Why not? They want to get these Americans out of here. So let's go ahead and start close combat with the Swamp Fox. So the first thing we do, we come up with our odds ratio, strength points for the Charleston Dragoons 2, and then for Swamp Fox it is 2, so we're going to be on the 1-to-1 column. And now let's go to look at our die roll modifiers. So I'm going to grab the player's aid card again, and we will start with the attacker, of course. So, adjusted morale of the attacker's lead unit, and of course the lead unit for the attacker has to be the Charleston Dragoons here and has to be Swamp Fox for the Americans because they're the only units involved in this close combat. So it's going to be a +1 for the morale, and then close combat die roll modifier of the attacking's commander. There's no leaders here. There is Swamp Fox is a demi-leader, I think, but we'll come to that in a second. Any defending unit is a rifle unit. Well, no, the rifle units have bugged out. Not disrupted, not shattered. Any attacker is mounted dragoon against a solely disrupted, or no, that doesn't apply. All defending units are militia attacked by at least 1 non-militia unit, and that's not going to apply here. Defender is surrounded, and of course, defender is in Nelson's Fairy Hex, so no, none of that applies. So we've got a +1. Now we look at the defender's benefits. We're going to subtract the morale of Swamp Fox, so that's going to be a -1. I'm looking, there's no leader there. There's the attacking unit is not a rifled unit, and let's see, militia doesn't apply, not attacking across creek. No, I'm just looking down the list. Attacker not surrounded. It is Swamp Fox, but he is not defending in the swamp, so nothing there. So it's going to be a +1 and a -1, so that's going to wash out and just leave us on the 1-to-1 close combat column. So let's look at that. 1-to-1, we'll bring the dice tower back in. So the British are going to roll here. They are rolling on the 1-to-1 column, and they get oh wait, you know what I forgot? I forgot the tactics. So let's bring that into play. We'll let that die roll stand, and we will look at our tactics matrix here to see what modifiers might apply to that roll. So going back to the solitaire tactics table, we are engaging without a leader. Is withdrawal plausible? And remember, plausible doesn't mean it's necessarily possible, although it would have to be possible, but is it plausible? Would they retreat here? Yeah, I'm going to say in this case it is plausible because they've already had the rifled unit retreat and they're alone. So I'm going to say that they would definitely consider retreating here. So I'm going to grab a D8 and we're going to roll for the British. So this is engage without a leader, withdrawal plausible. They roll an 8, which is skirmish. And let me grab this skirmish card for the British. And now the Americans, They are, let me see something here with Swamp Fox, because I think he acts as a demi-leader where tactics are concerned. I don't know if that means he engages as a leader. And looking at the special rules in the Eutaw scenario, Swamp Fox is a demi-leader for play of tactic chits for himself and any militia unit with whom he is stacked. If stacked with any other units or involved in multi-hex combat, he loses his capability. So it's saying that he does act as a leader, demi-leader for this. Has a leadership of DRM of +1 on the looting table and attempts to rally. So I'm going to say that he is acting as a leader for the tactics here as per the special rule. So we are engaging with the leader. Looking at the flow chart here, the solitaire table flow chart. So engaging with the leader. Opponent has no leader or opponent has leader. Opponent has no leader, so that takes us down to the next step. Is flanking possible? So I'm going to say yes, Swamp Fox could flank. So we're going to say flanking is possible and withdrawal is, I'm going to say that's also plausible. So I think Swamp Fox would withdraw if things started looking bad here. So I'm going to say use table number 5. And table number 5 tells us to roll a D10. So let me grab a D10. The Americans use, that looks like a 2, so that is going to be a withdrawal. So let me find that card. So that's what the Americans drew. And what does that look like on the matrix? Tactical matrix. The attacker is at skirmish, and the Swamp Fox, the Americans, withdraw. An NC, no combat. So let me have a look in the rules here. No combat, no combat, no combat. If one or both players chose the withdrawal tactic and the result indicated is no combat, the side playing the withdrawal tactic must retreat all units 1 hex. With the exception of artillery, both sides chose no. So the side that played it was the Americans, so the Swamp Fox did decide to pull back with that rifled unit. So he's going to retreat back 1 as well. And I'm looking now to see. So I'm looking, and I believe that the attacker for the British unit, the British unit gets to advance after, or has to advance after this combat unit. So there's no combat. Swamp Fox pulled back, and the Dragoons, I keep saying Dragoons, I'm trying to see what that says on the chit there, and it says Charleston Horses, I guess, Charleston Horse Unit. But anyway, they're going to advance into that vacated hex by the Swamp Fox. So that's going to resolve close combat up here. We had the rifled unit and Swamp Fox both retreated. The rifled unit for the British retreated, and those Dragoons advanced. So that's going to end close combat up there. So now let's zoom back out. I'll get this stuff out of the way. All right, I think I did that right. There was, we rolled the 7 on the die here, the D10. We rolled the 7, but we never really should have got that far according to the tactics matrix. When you had that one side withdrawing, then there would be no combat. So here's where we stand up north with Swamp Fox. There are no other areas to check for close combat. Well, not to check for close combat, but to resolve close combat is what I mean to say here. So we have conducted close combat, and now we go to move the game turn marker to the bottom half of the game turn and flip it over. So over here, now we flip this to the American side, and now the Americans will get to go. And so they have this stack coming in. I won't zoom in. We'll just go ahead and do this. We have, what do we have coming in? We have Washington's Dragoons, and just an infantry unit. Let you see those. So those come in at Hex A, so they're going to come in here. So that is place our reinforcements. And now we go to disrupted units may move 1 hex, no disrupted units, no shattered, no pin. Not yet, it's coming, I got a feeling though. And now we conduct our movement. So we will start up here, and we'll start with these Dragoons. And we'll start with the Palmetto Horse, and I think, and let me double check, I'm going to see, I think I might bring them around to try to harass Marchbanks over here, but I think he can enter that. That is heavily forested according to the terrain effects chart. And I'll point out that the terrain effects chart notes light forest and forest, while the actual terrain effects, or their terrain chart on the map shows light woods and heavy woods. So that's what I'm calling light forest and forest in case you're confused. So looking at the forest, dragoons are prohibited in, well, no, they're not. They can enter forest, so that's, I'm going to call that heavy woods. And of course, that is up here, so it would cost 2 movement points. So they could go 1, 2, 3, 4. So they can certainly do that. And then I may bring this Lee's Legion around and do the same thing to this unit, which is on the end of the line here. So he could go 1, 2, 3 and harass. Let's do that. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. And Lee's Legion's going to go 1, 2, 3. Have to stop when you enter the zone of control. And now, do we want to run some units up and attack this front line? There's artillery sitting there, so it's risky. And we could certainly, let's see, what's under here? We have our own artillery unit. They can only move 3, though, so it could go 1, 2, 3. Won't be able to do anything this turn. Who is with this other unit? We've got the North Carolina Militia, which has got a -1 morale. And we have Hampton. We can rush Hampton up there. And then back here we have the artillery unit. These units will not be able to get up there in time if they only have a 4 movement factor. Another artillery piece coming up from down the road, but that's not going to do us any good here. So would we want to delay this attack one more turn to get some more units into place? Maybe. It's turn 4. We could move up to here and maybe build a force or build up a stack with which to attack this front line stack. We might also be able to get some more units around the other sides. I think we're just going to go in. I think we're learning the game and we're going to see what happens. It may be risky. So we're going to move Lee's Legion. It's going to go 1, 2. And then this is the Palmetto Foot. It's going to go 1, 2, 3. And our leader, do we want to bring our leader into the fray? Now that's risky because let's hold off on the leader for a second. This North Carolina Militia. We can certainly bring it forward. Its movement factor is 4, so it could go 1, 2, 3, 4. Are we violating stacking? No, because there's only 3 in there now, so we're going to add 2 more to that. And then Hampton. We are going to bring Hampton up. We're going to risk it. Hampton's coming in as well, so we're rushing headlong into that artillery piece. Our artillery piece is going to come forward 1, 2, 3. And this unit, Pickens, is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's green. Let's move green aside for a second. Maryland, who is this? This is the Maryland Brigade. They can move 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The Virginia Brigade, we will move right behind them, and green will stay with them. And then the artillery piece, 1, 2, 3, they're going to stay with the militia unit. They're going to move 3. And we're going to leave, well, we'll look up there in just a second. Let's go ahead and get these reinforcements in. So 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have a Dragoon unit that can go 6. Actually, this one strategic can go further. And now I'm wondering if I should have moved the artillery unit forward strategically. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 and 3 is 6, but I don't believe the artillery. Let's bring the artillery on with strategic movement. We can get it up here as well, because that will not count against our stacking limitation. Because it is up to 6 and plus 1 friendly artillery unit, leaders and markers do not count for stacking purposes. So that's valid, which means this militia unit, which only went 3, we need to move it 4. And this guy went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So strategic movement, we can get him up to here. And Washington's Dragoons can go up to 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So let's move him all the way up here. And maybe we'll use him to come around this way to help harass marchbanks up there. Now let's look up here at Swamp Fox. So we are in an enemy zone of control, but if I remember the rules correctly, we are allowed to move from an enemy zone of control into an enemy zone of control 1 hex. So we could split these units, or we could move both of these units because they are on Nelson's Ferry. And if I'm looking at the combat modifiers, if we are defending, let's see. Yeah, the attacker would get a +1 if we're in that ferry hex. So I think we're going to bring Swamp Fox and this unit. I think we're going to bring them, this rifled unit, we're going to bring them up the slope and out of Nelson's Ferry. So now they're back up on even ground with that British horse unit. So I'm just going to take a quick look to make sure that the slope, that we have enough movement points to do it. I'm sure we do because they have 4 and 5. So looking at the slopes, it just adds a +1. Yeah, they can certainly do that, and we're still okay because we only went 1 zone of control over. So that is going to be it for, grab my sequence of play chart. That's going to be it for movement. And now we go into the rally phase. No one to rally. Defensive artillery fire. So we do have this for the first time. All right, so this is where let me grab the sequence of play again, and select a target's going to be the first thing we do. So who do the British want to fire at in this hex? And the leader is tempting, that's for sure. But I think what they're going to do is fire at one of these stronger strength point units. And I think they're going to fire at this. They're going to fire at the North Carolina militia. So let's put him on top. Show that that's the unit the artillery is in fact firing upon. So we've selected our target. Now we're going to go back to the same table we used before for rifle fire. It's that one up there in the top, the rifle fire to hit table. And we will, of course, have our same modifiers. I'm going to grab the British D10. We're going to need that. All right, so is the target light infantry? No. Does not occupy forest. It is not artillery or mounted dragoon. Not a rifled unit. Not any of those buildings. Not the Santee River. So we are 2 strength points firing adjacent. So we're going to need a 6 or better to hit. So maybe it wasn't so smart for those units to rush up into the artillery's face. So looking for a 6 or better to score a hit. So let's go ahead and roll the, I'm looking too, because the artillery has a +1. And I'm looking at the player's aid card here, and I don't see anywhere where it says that +1 comes into play here for this modification. So I'm guessing that would just be used for morale checks. Looking in the defensive artillery fire general rules, under selecting targets and procedure, it says that you do roll a die which is modified by all applicable DRMs on the ranged fire to hit table. So we've looked at that and it's not on here. So I'm going to say no. We're just looking for a 6 or better to hit. And they roll a 0, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway. That is a complete miss. So that is defensive artillery fire, which was horrible for the British. So we now go into the rifled fire phase. So the Americans do have a rifle unit that can fire. That's up here with Swamp Fox. So let's go ahead and zoom in and take a look at that. All right, so we have this rifled unit. And let's go ahead and go back. Let me grab the player's A chart again. Where did I put the player's A chart? Here it is. So back to the ranged fire to hit table. We are looking at strength points. That's a 1, so it's adjacent. Looking for a 7. We'll put this back into play here on camera. We will roll that American blue die. So let's look at the modifiers. Target is light infantry, no. It is not in forest. Target is artillery or a mounted dragoon. Well, it is a mounted dragoon. So they are going to get a +1 for this. It is a rifle unit, but it's not firing for the first time, and it's none of these other things. So we do have a +1 for the fact that it's firing at dragoons, and his morale is 0, so there's going to be no adjustment for that. And both sides are still high morale for their army morale. So no modifications to the morale. So it's going to be a +1 only to this. But then when you look at the defender, and I'm sorry, we're not doing close combat. We don't look at the defender. We're still looking at this ranged fire. So it's strictly going to be a +1. And like I said, we are looking for a 7 to hit. So we fire. That is an 8 plus 1 is a 9, so that is definitely a hit. And now we look down to the rifle artillery fire damage table. Looking on the rifle fire column, we will roll the die again. And what is that? That's another 8. And an 8 is a D result, disrupted. All right, so let's get the dice tower out of the way. A disrupted result is going to mean this unit's going to have to retreat. Let me grab a disrupted marker. So the Charleston Dragoons are going to have to retreat, and looking at the rule book, the owning player retreats the affected unit 3 hexes and places a disruption marker on the unit. So 3 hexes. He's just going to come down the road. 1, 2, 3, run past the already running rifle unit. He will, of course, earn a disrupted marker. Place that on him. And we'll have a quick look at the results to see if this changes the morale. Okay, so looking at the Army morale adjustment table, when a side suffers a D disruption, it is going to be a -1 loss to the Army morale for the side that suffered it. So well, let's zoom back out here. All right, so I'm looking at the Army morale adjustment on the player's aid card here. Suffer a D, it is, and I'll hold this up closer so you can look at it. So you've got you suffer a D, so the side that suffered the D is going to lose 1 Army morale. So the Army morale marker gets adjusted down to 12 for the British, and it's +0 for the American side, so they gain nothing for that. And the other thing I have to do is, since the rifle unit did manage to cause that retreat, he's going to have to advance into that vacated hex. And that will conclude rifle fire. So that went pretty good for the Americans. Looked pretty shaky there initially as Swamp Fox and the rifle unit had to retreat, but I'm sure they were just regrouping. All right, so now we go into close combat would be the next thing we do. And I thought we were going to have some close combat up here, but not the case. But we do have close combat down here, so once again, I will zoom in so we can see what's going on. Let's start up here. We'll do the flanks first, then we'll get to this meaty battle in the middle, because that's going to be an interesting result to see. So we'll start up here with the Palmetto Horse Unit, and going down the close combat sequence of play, first we determine our odds, so let's take a quick look at that. So the Horse Unit, strength point 1, and we have 2, there's a light infantry unit in there. Strength points, let's just do this so we can see it. Strength points of 2, so it's going to be on the 1 to 2 column. And I just realized something here, so this is kind of bad for the Americans. I should have been shifting the battle I did up here. One of the special rules in the Eutaw Springs scenario book is the first time the Americans conduct a battle, or when they're on the defensive, they get to shift the column in their favor, one column over in their favor. And I forgot to do that up here. So I'm going to have to remember to do that down here. So fortunately it didn't, I don't think it really changed a lot up in the, where Swamp Fox was, but we've got to remember that. So I'm going to grab the Eutaw Springs Special Rules book, and this goes back to the surprise that the Americans had in this battle. 3.5, if you're looking at the special rules, and it says on the first turn, which any American units have close combat. So really the rifle fire wouldn't have counted anyway, I guess. Maybe we're okay. So when you have units in close combat with the British player units, shift 1 column left or right on the close combat table in favor of the Americans. So we're going to have to remember that. With that said, we are the Americans here attacking 1 to 2, but with that surprise column shift 1 to 2, it's going to push us up to the 1 to 1 column. And now we're going to do our modifiers, of course. So let's do our close combat DRMs here. We have, for the attacker, we have the morale for the Palmetto Horse is a 0. Both sides are still high morale, so that there's no adjustment for attacker morale. Close combat, commanders, there's no commander here. Defending unit is a rifle unit, no. They're not disrupted, they're not shattered, they are not a mounted dragoon. All defending units are militia, attacked by at least 1 non-militia, no. Defenders not surrounded, not in Nelson's Ferry. Now we look at the defenders' benefits. So we're going to subtract out the morale for the lead unit. And I haven't picked the lead units, but it's going to be, of course, Palmetto Horse, and it's going to be the light infantry down here, which is a +2. Yikes. So they're going to get a -2 to this die roll because of that morale. Marchbanks is there. So that's going to be another -1, it looks like. So now they're at -3. Okay, so there's no rifle units. There's same thing I'm looking at for defenders. No creeks, no ravines, none of this other stuff. Attacker not surrounded. Nope, nope, nope. So it's going to be a -3 to this roll. Let's get the dice tower back on the screen if we can. So we are on the 1-to-1 column because of the surprise attack. We are rolling for the Americans a blue D10 on the 1-to-1 with a -3. So that looks like a 3. -3 is a 0. So on the 1-to-1 column, a 0 is a 1/dash. That means, all right, I know you probably didn't notice that, but we just had a power outage here. So I had to stop the game and try to save the video file. I think I have recovered it successfully. I hope I have, because I've been going for quite a while. It would be a bummer if I can't and you never see this video. But yeah, I had a power outage. So what just happened, we rolled a 3. Now I realized during that power outage that I forgot to do the tactics tables, the tactics cards. So let's do that real quick before we check the result of this die roll, because it might make a difference. I don't think it's a huge deal for getting these tactics tables. I'm not sure how I feel about them overall yet, but some thoughts on that at the end of the playthrough. So let's go ahead and pick tactics. So we've got the Palmetto Horse unit is without a leader, so he's engaging without a leader. And withdrawal here is plausible, I think. So we're going to be on the engage without a leader, withdrawal plausible. That's table number 1. So we're going to roll a D8, it says. I will find my D8. So we're going to take this 3 result. We'll keep that since we've already rolled it. But the D8 is a 3, so that's a stand fast. So let's grab that card and place it on the board. If I can find it. There it is. And let's see, can we see it there? I think we can. So there's stand fast. Now the British, they do have marchbanks, so they do have a leader. So they are engaging with a leader. And we look further down to see if the opponent has no leader, which here it does not. So engage with a leader, opponent has no leader. Now flank, is flank possible or not? Flanking is possible. So flanking is possible. Is withdrawal plausible? You know, let's see. I mean, maybe, because he's on the outside edge of this. He's on the flank himself. Does have a leader with him, so it is. I guess it is plausible. It says to use table 5, so we're going to use table 5, and it says to roll a D10. So let's grab a D10. Rolling on table 5, and they roll well, it's a 10 here, so it's turn flank. So let's grab the turn flank card. So that's turn flank for the British. And now we will look up what that result is on the matrix. So let me grab the player A card and find the tactical matrix. So we're looking at stand fast for the attacker, and then we drop down to turn flank, and that is a -2. So that's not going to change anything here. So -2 on top of the -3 they already had. The end result for this combat is it's going to be on the 1-to-1 column, and it's going to be, well, let's see, we can go down to -2. So this will actually affect the outcome, because on the 1-to-1 ratio at a 0, which is what I thought it was a step loss, but we now have to drop down 2 more. So now we're actually at -2, and there is a -2 on the close combat table as a result. So that's an AC /dash, which means the unit is captured, attacker's choice. Well, there's only 1 unit there, so the Palmetto Horse unit is actually going to be captured. Let's get the dice out of the way. We will move the dice tower. I don't think we need that right now. We may bring it back, though, for this other combat, so that get these out of the way, too. The cards out of the way. All right, so the Palmetto Horse unit is captured. We will put that in the captured box on the map board. And now we have to look at what that means for army morale. So looking at army morale, and I am looking for captured unit. Have unit captured. The side that captured the unit will get a +1 army morale adjustment. So that's going to take the British up to 13, which is where they started. And the Americans will lose a army morale point, taking them down to 13. So now we're all tied up. 13-13 on the morale track. They're still both at high morale, so that hasn't changed any of that yet. And just a quick look, I'm looking at the victory point schedule below. It says they're going to get a victory point for each enemy unit captured, but that won't come into play until we're counting victory points. So I think we've managed to account for all of that. So that's, and then now we have to advance our lead unit into that hex. So we're going to move that light infantry is going to advance into the heavy woods there. I'm going to double check to make sure he can do that. I'm pretty sure he can. That is not prohibited terrain for that light infantry, so he will advance into that hex. Bad news for the American side. They've had a unit captured, and we have to continue along now with more combat. So down here, we'll go to Lee's Legion, and let's see if he fares any better. So the first thing we're going to do is look at our ratios here. We are at 1 to 3, and remember that we still have the surprise column shift enforced here. So 1 to 3 will become a 1 to 2 on the close combat table. So you have to remember we're 1 to 2. And now we will look at our close combat modifiers. Of course, each of these units are the lead unit. So the lead unit is the morale for the lead unit is +1, so they're going to get a +1. No commander, defending unit is not a rifled unit, and just looking down the list, none of the other attacker benefits will apply. Now the defender benefits, the morale for that unit is 0, so nothing there. And remember the overall army morale track, they're both at their high morale, so there's no adjustments for that. No leader for the defender. And just a quick look at the remaining benefits. I don't see anything here that would apply. So it looks like it's going to be just a +1 so far to this roll, but now we have to do the tactics again. The Lee's Legion unit, are we engaging with or without a leader? It's without a leader. Is withdrawal plausible? Again, I think here it probably would be plausible. And while I'm talking, let's go ahead and get this back out. So yeah, withdrawal I think would be plausible here since he's by himself. And so that tells us to use table number 1, which we've used before, grabbing the D8 it says. So let's find the D8. All right, we've got the D8 and we're going to roll. You roll a 3, that is a stand fast. So let's grab the cards. I think that's what they had last time, or that last battle we did, the stand fast card. So now we're going to do the same thing for the British, for the 64th there. So again, we go back to this flow chart. Are they engaging with or without a leader? They are engaging without a leader. Withdrawal plausible here. It's plausible. So again, we're going to go back to table number 1. We're going to roll the D8. And they will skirmish. So let's grab the skirmish card. So there's the skirmish card. That's what the British are doing. And now we look it up on the tactical matrix. So you've got the Americans stand fast, and we read down to skirmish. It's a +1 for the roll. So now we're at +2 overall for this combat roll. So let's go ahead and grab the American D10, which is the blue D10. And we're on the 1 to 2 column. So that's 3 + 2 is a 5. And on the 1 to 2, that is a pinned result. Our first pin result. So I'm going to grab a pin marker, 2 pin markers, and we will place those on these units. Let me get this dice tower out of the way temporarily. These units become pinned. And I will get the tactical cards off the board. And one more close combat to resolve, and that's this big one here that's right in the middle of the road leading towards the plantation. So we're going to go through the same thing here where we're going to first figure out where we're at on the combat table, our ratios. Let's spread these out. There are 4 units in here. We do have a leader present. We'll put him on top. So we've got 2, 4, 5. It looks like the Americans have 5 strength points. Let's go ahead and pick our lead unit now. I think we're going to pick this Lee's Legion to be our lead unit. So let's go ahead and just put him on top. And we've got to remember we have Hampton in there. I'm going to put just Hampton to the top here just as a reminder to me that there is a leader there with this Lee's Legion being our lead unit. So that's 5 strength points, and we are attacking. We don't count the artillery here. And let's see what's under here. So we have a Delancey, it looks like, at a +1, and this other unit, Skinner's Greens, is at a 0. So our lead unit will want to be this Delancey unit. I think that's what it says. It's hard to read with my eyes. And there is Coffin back behind him, so we can use the tactical, use that in tactics. So, okay, we're at 5 to, oh, what did I say? I've already forgot. I think it was 4. Yeah, 5-4. The artillery unit, we'll put it back under. 5 to 4, and again, we have the column shift for surprise. So the 5 to 4 is a 1 to 1. So we will be on the next one over would be 3 to 2. So we are on the 3 to 2 column. Now let's go down our list of attacker benefits. Okay, so we adjust for the morale of the lead unit. Lee's Legion's at +1, so that's a +1 for Lee's Legion. Close combat DRM of the commanding leader. Well, remember that Hampton was actually in the stack, so there's another +1 for that. Defending unit is not a rifled unit, and then just reading down the list of other attacker benefits, none of these will apply. Now the defender's benefits, we're going to adjust the morale of the lead unit. It's a +1 for Delancey, so that's going to be a -1 for the die roll. There's no leader in that stack, so there'll be no defending commander's DRM. And then looking down the remainder of the defender benefits, none of these will apply. So that leaves the tactics now. So let's get our flow chart back out for tactics. Starting with the Americans, are we engaging with the leader or without? We're engaging with the leader, so yes. The opponent does not have a leader, and is flanking possible. It is possible, and is withdrawal plausible. I think it probably would be plausible here. So we're going to use table 5. So table 5 says use a D10, so let's use a D10. I'll get this back out. Using a D10, we're rolling on table 5. We roll a 3, so that is skirmish. We'll grab the skirmish card. Probably be easier to use the chits that came with this instead of using the cards, but we'll use the cards because that way you can actually see the values on them if there's not a glare like there is there. And so now we're going to go look at the flow chart again for the British. Engaging with or without a leader. They are engaging without a leader. Is withdrawal plausible? I'm going to say, I guess it would be plausible because if something went south, they certainly wouldn't stand there. They would probably drop back to where Coffin is. So I'm going to say it is plausible. So that's table 1 again, and that means we're going to use a D8. So rolling a D8 on table 1 is a 3. Stand fast. So stand fast. And looking up the tactical combat matrix, we have the attackers are skirmish and our defenders are stand fast. That is a -1. So that worked out to the benefit of the British there. So we've got 2 +1s, 2 -1s. So it will simply be a die roll on the 3 to 2 column of the close combat table. So let's get the blue American die and roll. They roll a 4 with no modifiers on the 3 to 2 column. That is a pinned result. Oh goodness, so there's an intense firing down the line and all these units are being pinned. We will put Hampton back. Oops. We will put Hampton back in the stack. And we will put a pin marker on that stack. And we will put a pin marker on that British stack. And we'll remove these cards, get the dice tower out of the way. And so that's going to conclude close combat. So we've resolved all close combat for the Americans. So let's go ahead now and zoom back out. Here we are zoomed back out. So that was a lot more eventful, the most eventful turn we've had. We had the battle up north here with Swamp Fox, who managed to have the 2 British units basically retreat there, disrupted one of those units. And then firing all along the line here, the Americans did have one of their units captured, but there's a lot of action going on here in the main front. So that's going to be it for close combat. And now we simply, that's it. We move the game turn marker. It will go up to the next turn, turn number 5. It will be 11 a.m. when we begin that next turn. So I will end it here. Turn number 4 has ended and the engagement is well underway. And when we come back, we will see just exactly what happens Alright, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you have not, and as always, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you back here next time.